Linda and John planned great things in their youth. They believed in a happy future, dreamed of going around the world, and genuinely loved each other. They began dating when they were still in college and were going to get married after graduation. You've already found the one. Your love life is clear. I still have a lot of work to do to find the right guy. Linda's best friend, Kira, pondered. Well, at least I'll be a bridesmaid at your wedding, Kira dreamed aloud. I'm sure things will definitely work out very well for you, too. I hope we can raise kids together and they'll be best friends like you and me, too, Linda encouraged her friend. The parents of the lovers were worried about their decision to start a family so early, but they respected their children's choice and prepared for the wedding. Linda and John received both material and moral support from their loving parents. What's more, they even had a place to live. John's grandmother had left him a cozy apartment in the suburbs. Everything seemed almost perfect. At least, so they thought, until a terrifying truth came to light that shattered their fairy tale. I'm pregnant by your fiancé, and I can't do anything about it because of medical contraindications. Linda was dumbfounded by the bright brunette who had arranged to meet her in a city cafe. And how long have you been in a relationship with John? Not really knowing how to react to the news, Linda asked her companion. I'm 3 months pregnant, Helen replied. Calling it an affair or of a relationship would be hard. We just hooked up and that's it, she added. I knew then that John had a fiancé and was getting married. When I told him about the pregnancy, I hoped he changed his mind, Helen muttered, wondering what else to say to Linda. This pregnancy is changing my life. My hopes didn't come true. I understand John has no plans to call off the wedding. He told me that he didn't want us and that our communication was a mistake and we shouldn't pay much attention to those meetings, Helen continued. I understand that John doesn't love me. I decided to tell you the truth myself so I wouldn't regret my indecision. I wanted my child to have a full family. Helen summed up her story. Linda not only had to accept this truth, but also had to figure out how to live with it. The wedding was only a few weeks away, but after talking with Helen, Linda was unsure whether a wedding celebration was even possible. Helen was a random episode in my life, so you don't have to worry and think bad thoughts, John excused himself. I only love you. It was only a couple of times. We dated at her initiative. And I was tempted. Forgive me, John said confidently. The baby turned out to be an accident, too. He'll be born in 6 months, and you'll have to take responsibility for him. Linda was indignant. I don't refuse to be financially involved in his life, but no more than that. When she got pregnant, she didn't even ask me if I wanted it or not. She was just hoping to keep me with this baby. I didn't promise her anything. John continued to reason. I don't want to live with you waiting to see if you'll be tempted next time or not, Linda said firmly. What do you mean by that? Said John. You cheated on me while we were together. You're not ready to take responsibility for your actions, and I don't want to live with a traitor. Linda decided to bring the conversation to its logical conclusion. I won't marry you, because I don't want to live with a liar and a cheater, she declared. Linda did not tell her parents the truth about the reason for canceling the wedding, so as not to add to their anxiety. The parents were already shocked by the news and tried to do everything possible to reconcile the couple, but it turned out to be impossible. The girl categorically refused to have any further contact with her ex-fiancé, although this decision was very difficult for her. Linda tried to deceive herself about the impossibility of a relationship with the betrayer and painfully experienced what was happening. John circled around her for months with phone calls and attempts to talk, but all ended to no avail. "You're not going to stay home all your life, are you?" Kira asked when she met Linda again. "It's been 3 years since your wedding broke up, and you still haven't started a relationship." "I don't particularly feel like it yet. I'm concentrating on my career right now," answered the girl. "What do you mean you don't want to? Time is passing and you're withdrawn into yourself." "But your ex has been doing well for a long time," Kira said unexpectedly. "How do you know? Have you seen him?" Linda tried to find out indifferently. "A mutual acquaintance told me that your parents forced your ex to end up marrying that girl, and now they're raising their daughter together," Kira replied. Parents periodically tried to match their daughter with someone, but she stubbornly resisted. Linda thought it was silly. Then Kira introduced her to a friend of her husband's, who from the first meeting showed interest in her. "That's what happens in life," Kira said later. "We thought you'd get married before I did, have a bunch of kids. I ended up with a son growing up, and you still haven't found personal happiness. Fate is a great thing, so do not try to cheat it." Kira looked at things realistically. "But you? Take a closer look at Robert. My husband says he is a good man. Perhaps he will be your destiny, and you will live in happiness for years to come," Kira persuaded. Linda initially did not want to start a relationship, but she gave in to the entreaties of others and began to respond to Robert's signs of attention. He did not arouse any special feelings, but he did not irritate her either. Therefore, after a year of relationship, Linda accepted a marriage proposal from Robert. "Only I have one wish," she said at once. "I don't want a flashy wedding reception. We'll just legalize our relationship." To this, the man in love agreed, and after the official marriage, they began to live together, planning to buy themselves a cozy little house in the near future. Both spouses worked hard and were careful with money. In all this time, Linda had hardly thought of her ex-fiancé. At least, she wanted to believe that she did. During a chance encounter on the street, John said confusedly, "You look beautiful." Linda answered honestly, "I can't say the same thing about you. You look shabby." He justified himself. "Lately, I have a lot of things to do, and I don't have time for rest. My daughter is often sick, my wife has to go to the hospital with her, and I am busy with work and household chores." Linda wished his child a speedy recovery and said goodbye. "I have to go. I see no point in keeping in touch. It seems to me all the time my daughter's illnesses and my problems are payment for my previous mistakes. I betrayed the girl I loved, married the girl I didn't love. Now I don't even dream of any happiness or serenity anymore," John said confusedly. "It's all nonsense and prejudice," Linda replied. She was unwilling to listen to his reasoning. "There's no need to reminisce about the past. We each have our own family now, and let's live in the present." She said goodbye. Following Linda's departure, he shouted, "I love you! Do you hear me? I will always love you!" Linda wandered the streets of the city for a long time afterward, hesitating to go home, where she would meet her husband and have to listen to him talk about the problems at work and the events of the past day. At this point, she was desperate to avoid it. Linda had not really wanted anything lately. Nothing evoked any joy, especially concerning her husband. Robert did not notice this and seemed perfectly happy and carefree in his reality. He was especially excited about the news of her pregnancy. "If we have a son, let's name him John, after my grandfather," Robert expressed his wish. "If we have a boy, we'll choose another name for him. It's a matter of principle and not up for discussion," Linda said, trying to hide her nervousness and heightened emotionally in response to her husband's suggestion. Robert did not know about Linda's past history, for she did not want to remember it and forbade those around her to tell details about her first failure. The thought of complying with her husband's proposal evoked negative emotions from her, from which she could not get rid despite her efforts. When a girl was born, they jointly named her Nancy, and the subject of name choice was closed. Robert was genuinely happy to have a daughter, but he also dreamed of having a son. "We'll have a boy later, and now we'll raise a beautiful girl," he reasoned. Linda preferred not to comment on such things, because she was not quite sure if she could decide to have another child. She was well aware that in case of divorce, she could handle one child on her own, and her parents were always ready to help. With 2 children, however, things would be much more complicated. But telling her husband about her fears and doubts seemed categorically wrong, so she preferred to keep silent or move the conversation to another topic. Absorbed in business, Robert could not understand or pretend as if everything was within normal limits. Fully immersed in the process of raising her daughter, Linda tried not to think about anything but her child. Robert was always away at work while she was busy with household chores. From the outside, everything seemed normal, except that there was no peace in her heart, and Linda often succumbed to sad thoughts. Almost no one guessed it, however, and life went on. "We've raised a beautiful daughter," Robert told his wife before graduating from university, where their daughter successfully graduated. "We can only hope that things work out well for her," Linda encouraged her husband. "The only thing I regret in this life is that we never had a son." I guess it was God's will, Linda thought to herself. In fact, Robert longed for another child, but at the time Linda was hesitant. They had been married to Robert for a long time, and all the young adventures were in the past, but there were still some doubts in her soul. She was truly grateful to her husband for his support and attention. Robert turned out to be a wonderful father and did everything for the happiness of the family, but there was nothing more than gratitude in her soul. Linda and Robert took care of their daughter, worked, and solved household problems, and it all seemed normal. The adult daughter had started her life, and the 2 parents left behind didn't really know how to move forward. "Remember John?" her longtime friend Kira asked. "We haven't heard from him in ages, but I recently met a mutual acquaintance of ours." "I remember. And what does this acquaintance say?" Linda couldn't help herself. "He drank himself to death and now lives all alone. His wife tolerated and treated him for a long time, and then she left. A friend told me. His daughter got married and went to another city, and he stayed alone and drank away his last savings. I sincerely feel sorry for him. Maybe there's something we can do to help him." Linda expressed her sympathy. "Yeah, let's take responsibility for a 50-year-old alcoholic and waste our energy and health on him," Kira replied angrily. "Don't even think about getting involved in this situation. And anyway, I shouldn't have told you all that. Now you'll be spinning it in your head." In her years of friendship, Kira had gotten to know her friend all too well, and she realized that Linda might react the wrong way. She was right. Linda was immediately filled with regret and reflection on the matter. It seemed to her that if she and John had become a family when she was young, things would have worked out differently. But nothing could be changed. It seemed the only right choice at the time, but why didn't she feel better? And all these years, Linda felt deeply unhappy and lonely, even with the people closest to her. Hiding the truth of her plot from everyone, she decided to find John by remembering the address of his apartment. She rang the doorbell. A shabby man appeared in the doorstep. He smelled strongly of alcohol. He did not immediately recognize his guest, and then was delighted and confused by her appearance. "I'd like to talk, but I'm not ready to go into your apartment, given the mess you're in," she said. "You get yourself cleaned up and I'll wait outside." 20 minutes later, John came out, dressed and washed. He looked nothing like the charismatic and attractive guy Linda had been in love with in her youth. "I just wanted to see if you needed any help," she began the conversation. "Just keep in mind that I'm not giving you money for alcohol." "I'm not sick and I don't need pity," he said. taking out a cigarette. I waited a long time for your forgiveness. Then I tried to take care of my family. But I couldn't love my wife. And my daughter grew up and now I'm alone and no one needs me. It's your fault I'm living like this now, he accused Linda. What's my fault? She didn't understand. How many times I called and came and begged your forgiveness, but you were proud and wouldn't forgive a man who had made a mistake, he replied. You betrayed me. I told you right away that I couldn't trust you or live in peace and harmony with you at all after that. Well, yes, you've always been proud. And who's that made it easier? John didn't understand her logic. I have loved you all my life. You left after your first transgression and broke the fate of yourself. Me, my wife, and your husband. Or did you really love him? And do you live in happiness and joy? You shouldn't care, she said. See, I wasn't wrong, and things could have been different. If you had forgiven me, then I would have given money for the baby, and Helen would have found another husband, and you and I would have been happy, he continued. Linda left with a heavy heart. She did not want to take the accusations addressed to her seriously. But his words about forgiveness were in her mind, and somehow they made her feel so sad that she wanted to cry. Not wanting to go home in this mood, she went into a nearby church and sat on a bench for a long time. When Linda returned home, she went straight to bed, citing headache and fatigue. Her husband did not ask, leaving aspirin and a glass of water on the nightstand. A month later, Linda decided to talk to John again. She met the same worn-out and untidy man. I wanted to tell you that I forgive you and let you go forever, she said, looking him straight in the eye. I'm not sure that you need my forgiveness, but I do. Because this story has been dragging on for most of our lives and is destroying me from the inside out. I don't want anything from you. Once, I was ready to get a star in the sky for you. Now let it all go nowhere. I don't care anymore. This time, Linda left the man relieved in spite of his bitter words. She realized that all these years she had suffered not from love for him, but from the weight of her own resentment and her inability to forgive the man for the wrong she had done. It hindered her life and created many problems, depriving her of her right to happiness. It was impossible to save John because he did not want to. He didn't want to change anything. It was easier for him to blame Linda and live with past grievances. She, on the other hand, desperately wanted to just live, to enjoy the little things, to wait for her grandchildren, and to thank heaven for the opportunity to be with her family. Linda finally allowed herself to be happy and found that what she had was happiness, and she would be responsible for her past decisions after she had met God. Only he could judge whether she was right then in not accepting the betrayal.